don't want to die with a dick on my face.
Hey guys, Jim here. Welcome in once again. Today we're going to be taking a look at something entirely different, something you would absolutely never expect to see on my channel, and that is an affordable budget knife and done in micarta. But it is kind of an interesting, special little knife. Let's get into it. This is the Tempest Knives Microburst. These are only 89 bucks, man. 89 bucks. Honestly, if a knife is made of relatively decent steel, it has a somewhat remotely attractive design, and the action is somewhat decent, it's going to be worth 89 bucks. It's something you can afford to very easily just take a chance on and see for yourself. So I think it's interesting to bring it out here on the channel. Now, another cool thing about this is it was designed and is being offered by a fellow YouTuber, and that is Knives Fast. As a matter of fact, I'm going to bring this little card right out here so that if for any reason you want to reach out to him, you have his information right there. Let's get into the TLDW. Too long, didn't watch. For all of those that have almost no patience whatsoever, terrible attention spans. Let's start with the positives. It's got a really good shape to the handle, feels good in the hand. Jipping is precisely where my thumb wants to drop. Thankfully, everybody just puts it back here, and you're kind of like, you're forced to pull back on the knife in order for that your thumb to land where you want it. No. There, that's where I want my friggin' thumb. Now, I can also choke up because of this very slight finger choil here. Nothing crazy, nothing overpronounced. And then the back of my thumb is still hitting the jimping, and I'm resting on the spine of the blade. Perfectly acceptable, good placement for the jimping. Another pro, the action. Nice detent. Nice and smooth on the bearings. Has a nice feel to it overall. I love how this looks when it's closed. I love this shape. Now, a lot of you guys already know that I love a sheep's foot blade, modified sheep's foot, whatever you want to call this. I love the way it just disappears into the frame, and it's not a lot of times when you see a sheep's foot, proportionally it is all kinds of out of whack, and the blade always looks significantly smaller than the handle, especially when it's closed. But they did a really good job on the balance of this. They made it fit well. Nicely, nicely done. Another pro, I love that pivot. Super cool, man. But I'm a car guy and a motorcycle guy, so yeah, seeing a 5-spoke wheel design as a pivot, I think is pretty friggin' cool, man. And I'm sure other people have done it before, but I don't recall ever seeing it. And I'm kind of mad that I didn't think of that myself for the folders I have coming out. I think that's pretty damn brilliant. Another pro, the way this titanium backspacer is done with the hidden lanyard post. You don't have a big old hole just sticking all the way through the knife, where people that don't like lanyards go, well, shit, that's completely just taken away from the whole look of the knife. Here, it's hidden away. If you use lanyards, it's going to be in a great place for you. If you don't use lanyards, you never have to worry about it. Now, For the cons, and I hate to say it, but there's pretty serious cons for me as an individual. Number one, I'm always going to nail everybody that does this paper clip style pocket clip. I don't know why everybody is doing it. It's not even a significant price difference between this and more of a standard type of milled clip. It's not a huge price difference, but it does allow him to keep this under $100. So I get that. It's a personal thing for me, even though I have broken that personal code 3 or 4 times now. Actually, I have, and some of the knives I really enjoy carrying the most actually have that same clip. That being said, they work very well. They do their job. They're just not premium looking, is all. Another thing is, and again, this is purely personal and not a real reflection on the knife. Why is everybody so, as a designer and manufacturer, so fascinated with micarta? Why? I just don't get it. And you see a lot of knives out there where they'll offer 3 or 4 carbon fiber choices and 1 or 2 micartas. All the carbon fiber versions sell out very quickly. And what are they left with? Micarta. Because it looks terrible. To me, it feels terrible. Some people may like that soft feel, and I get that. But for me, I don't understand it. I don't want a knife that looks like it's 20 years old right out of the box. That's just not for me. However, I do realize the buying public is a lot larger than just me, and a lot of people do like it. So hey, more power to you. But I can tell you this right now: if this were all titanium, or if it were carbon fiber, I would really be interested in this knife. It's just the micarta that completely takes any joy away from me. But for those of you that are sitting there right now going, Jim, what the hell are you talking about? I love micarta. Then you're going to love the shit out of this knife. Because that's really the worst thing I can say is I hate the material. That's it. The clip could be better. The materials chosen could be better. But that's it. And those are really just truly personal preferences. A couple little things that I would have kind of zapped on this knife are already being addressed. So I'll discuss those later on. Let's get into the specs on this knife. As a matter of fact, I think I can move that over just a wee little bit more. Okay. What we've got here is an overall length of 7 inches with a blade length of 3 inches and 14C28N, which is kind of really getting more and more traction lately. A little bit more popular of a blade steel on these lesser expensive knives, and people seem to be happy with them, so I've got no reason to complain either. Blade thickness is 120 thou thick, so it is thin and slicey, but it's not wimpy in any way. I wouldn't really have any fears of doing pretty much anything with this particular blade. It is a modified sheep's foot profile. Your handle length is 4 inches. It is black micarta for the scales, and the weight is only 3¼ ounces. That's going to be a big deal for a lot of people. It's super lightweight, but it still has a little bit of heft to it. So it's not like a featherweight where you're kind of like, I don't know, it kind of feels delicate. This kind of still feels like a bruiser, you know, it feels like it has a little bit of substance, but once it's in your pocket, it just disappears. You don't even realize that you're carrying it. Kind of dig that. And these are made in China by Kubi, and that was the other reason I brought out this Devo Mash, because that was my first experience with a Kubi knife. And I have to say, for the money, I was pretty damn impressed. Titanium hardware and titanium backspacer. A little side note for you. You can get the Lynch Spyderco wire replacement clips, and they will fit this knife. So if you're like, I love everything about this knife, but I can't stand that stupid Mr. Clippy clip. All right, get the knife, and for just a couple of bucks, you could put the Lynch clip on there, and you're golden. You're good to go. 2 options are going to be black micarta with the stonewash blade and the satin finished hardware, or black micarta with the black wash blade and hardware, which is the one that I have here. Yes, I know black micarta really just looks like gray. It doesn't come off as black unless it's like a linen micarta, and then it's heavily oiled and impregnated, and then they do a polish on it, which at that point it feels like a much higher end material, and you don't feel this feels like you're rubbing some dude's jeans. You're sitting on a bus next to some dude, and you're like, hey man, hey, hey, how are you? And maybe that's why I don't like it. I don't want somebody rubbing my jeans. I don't want to rub anybody else's. That got weird, didn't it? Just a little bit. So yeah, it is black, black micarta, but it's really like a two-tone gray. Now, the changes from this prototype to the production knife. What's it going to be? There will be a left side option for the clip. So those two little slots and the screw hole, there will be added to the show side as well. And that will allow you to reverse the clip and carry it in either pocket, if that works for you, if you're a lefty in particular. They're good. Okay. I'm having to read this because it's an extra note that was sent to me. They are going to add a chamfer right in here on the lock so it doesn't have that sharpness. Right now, this one is ridiculously sharp. But it's one of those things that when you're in the planning stages, you're in the rendering stages with the factory, that you may not even notice that they did or didn't do on there. But you get that prototype in your hand, you're like, oh, yeah, no, that's got to change. We need to scallop this. We need to soften this. And that is exactly what KC did when he got his prototypes. He went, no, that's got to change. They're going to relieve, I believe, a little bit more here as well to give you a little bit more access. Honestly, I think the access to the lock is perfectly fine the way it is. But if they add a little bit more, I mean, nobody's going to complain about that. And the only other thing, and this is something that I would have mentioned as well, the edges on each step of these thumb studs were left very sharp, and they just tear up your fingers, man. And obviously mine are torn up all day, and they're calloused from grinding knives and everything else all day. But even for me, I could feel it. I'm like, oh, that's weirdly sharp. That is already being addressed. They're going to soften those out, so that will no longer be an issue. So that's that on the changes. Now, my thoughts on the knife overall. Taking away the things that just aren't going to change, to satisfy me, because who the hell am I? They don't need to satisfy me for shit. So taking the clip out of the discussion and taking god-awful micarta out of the discussion, I dig this knife. I love the belly of the blade. You've got a lot there to work with. And because it's a sheep's foot, and somebody might be thinking, as I mentioned earlier, that I love sheep's foot, why I like it so much, because I've got a little bit of belly here, and the tip isn't all the way up here. The tip can start being engaged right there instead of going all the way up here, like if you're slicing boxes open and stuff. All I've got to do is right there, boom, and then I can slice. I don't have to go straight up and down to do it then. And it makes me feel like I've got more leverage that way as well. So for me, it's a more useful blade shape overall. It's one of my favorite blade shapes because it is a very useful blade shape. The only thing that I really, really like is he has kept the markings on this knife to an absolute minimum. He's got the Tempest Knives logo there. Now, this prototype is a D2. They're not going to be D2. I'm glad he didn't do that. And it's going to, somewhere over here, it's going to have the blade marking. Obviously, 14C 28N is not going to fit in that little space unless they go in this direction. But he's kept everything to a minimum as far as the markings and really just let the finish shine on its own and allowed you to see the grind and the swedge really, really nicely. They've done a nice black wash on this. I like this look. It's dark and it hides, your daily wear scratches very well because of the stone wash. I love having this finger choil, and it's in the right place too. and I don't feel like I'm being forced into it. If I don't want to use that, I don't feel like I have no in-between point here. I'm really comfortable no matter how much, excuse me, no matter how I decide I want to hold the knife. The shape of the scales is very, very gently contoured. So there's only a little bit of curvature. It's not overly done. And it feels nice. And it definitely feels better than a slab-sided knife, for certain. So I like how it feels. I love the blade profile. I really like the action. And I can tell you right now, if he decides to do some of these, and you know what, maybe they're $10, $15 more expensive. Maybe they hit a whopping $100. Do that in all carbon fiber, and I'm going to be in line for one. I think it's that cool. I think it's that well done. I'm typically not all that attracted to very inexpensive knives, but I think it did a really good job on this. Throw in the materials that I need to satisfy my own personal wants and desires, and I'll probably have one in my collection at the same time. So for those of you that appreciate a lesser expensive knife that feels a little bit more expensive than it really is, I think it's going to be a great way to go. Is it a show-off piece? No. I mean, it really has this dark, grungy look, which there are plenty of knives in my collection that I have gone that route with because I think it's kind of cool. This is kind of like your rat rod of your car collection, you know? But yeah, man, you throw some carbon fiber in that bad boy, and that's it. No other changes, just carbon fiber. And I'll be like, hell yeah. I kind of dig it. Overall, it's pretty damn well made. I really have no complaints about the operation of it, about the ergos of it, about the edge. They did a good job with the edge. The bevel geometry on this comes down so thin because it's such a tall flat grind that you've actually got a really nice, useful edge. So this is definitely going to be for somebody that actually does use their knives and actually wants to cut shit. You're going to enjoy cutting shit. So them's my thoughts. I don't know if I can really... Yeah, you can reverse flick it if you want to. Them's my thoughts on the knife. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I think for 89 bucks, you can't go wrong. If this was like 160, 170 bucks, there's no way that it would have made it here under my lens and been on my channel. Couldn't do it because it would not have been, the value ratios would have been way the hell off. For 89 bucks, I think it's exactly what it needs to be. And with that, I'll see you guys on the next video.